So my talk, if it were to be entitled, it would be The Rosary, the Prayer of the Little Voice. So before we begin with speaking about the Rosary per se, I'd like to tell you a little story. And long ago, before the mists of time rose above the recordings of the storied ages, Greeks were busying themselves with the creation of gods to give answer to the various wherefores and what-fors of life. They created gods and were not themselves created, because for all the glorious light which gave birth in Greece to philosophy and mathematics and science and wonder, they lived in an existential twilight. They lived in the time of the still unknown God. Well, in these times, Eos, the goddess of the dawn, her abode between the father sky and the mother earth, was assigned with the duty to herald in the coming of the day with her rosy fingers. After the dawning of each day, Eos occupied herself in the way most other Greek celestials did in their free time. She ravished comely youths. By one of these, Tithonus, a godlike Greek in human flesh, she was completely overcome. So enraptured was she by him, yearning he share her noble status for all time, she knelt before Zeus, the king of these Olympian mythical deities, and begged from him immortal life for Tithonus. Zeus granted Eos her wish. Dim-lit, however, as the dawn often is, Eos, her vision clouded by a rapacious appetite, forgot to ask for Tithonus's eternal youth. Never seemed to dawn on Eos that immortal life and eternal youth might be two entirely separate things. Well, Eos got what she asked for, but not what she wanted. And so Tithonus ended up living on and on and on and on through ages and centuries and millennia, and looked every day of them. Tithonus had been kissed with the highest ideal of the ancient Greek world, the ideal of physical beauty. And the lesson from this myth, the what for of idyllic beauty, was that not even the gods, for all their Olympian omnipotence, could ever catch hold forever or hold on forever to the elusive evanescence of human ideals. As Robert Frost noted many centuries later in his poem, "Nothing Gold Can Stay," nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. Here is something which, while poignant and sad, and in a certain sense true about the reality of things, would lead us, if truly true, to a sort of serious melancholia. Yes, from this world's perspective, nothing gold can stay. Nothing ideal lasts forever. Or perhaps nothing perceived ideal lasts forever. But this is also a vision from a fractured and broken, a wounded and sullied worldview, soiled forever by the first sin of mankind. It is the sad realization that nothing of mankind's making can ever really make mankind right again. And so, as this world's wisdom would have it, grasp whatever can be taken now, hold on to it as long as possible, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die, would seem to be the order of the day. Yet somehow this philosophical point of view leaves us feeling uneasy. Oh, it sits squarely enough on the surface of our minds, but somehow this worldview does not settle so well in our deeper sense. It does not satisfy our souls. We sense brightly that there must be something more. That is because we are an Easter people. We are a people of light. That light, which was part of our original design at creation, has been restored. That is, we are created, and by a God who does not forget to think of what else to include in his idea of creation. Remember Isaiah 40:14. With whom hath he consulted, and who hath instructed him, and taught him the path of justice, and taught him knowledge, and showed him the way of understanding? The ancient Greeks created their gods, and so their gods could stretch no farther than the imaginations of their creators. We, on the other hand, were created by God, the God of the universe, the God of all creation. And we can do what is seemingly unimaginable through him who first loved us in our creation. So far less than our Creator, and yet we can marvel at his love in our own creation, as Psalm 139:14 marks. I will give thanks to thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are thy works, and my soul knows right well. Clearly then, as St. John Paul II wrote in his book, Love and Responsibility, man must reconcile himself with his true greatness. He must never forget he is a person. Here in these words, St. John Paul has touched the jewel in the crown of our creation. It is in our personhood, the image, the very Spirit of God himself in us, that our wonder of his work has been relit and rekindled. We see it is in our personhood that we were created in the image of the person of God. It is in this personhood that we resemble God in the most distinguished way. It is in the very idea of our making that we were created for God in a way no other in creation was made. Psalm 8 speaks, what is man that you are mindful of him, and a son of man that you care for him? Yet you have made him little less than a God, crowned him with glory and honor. And we were made to live with God in eternity. Yet our hearts do not rise in exultation solely because of the gift of life immortal, but because we were made to be holy. We were made to be like God. For we were made not in the image of God alone, but in his likeness. So we gain heaven not simply because we alone of all creation look like God, but because we can act like God as well. As we have been reminded by the Second Vatican Council, from our very creation, we have each of us and all of us been called to holiness. As St. Paul can be cited, it is the will of God, our sanctification. 1 Thessalonians 4:3. In other words, we were not created and called, as the ancient Greeks might have believed, to a heroism which would make us live on forever in the hearts and minds of all times and peoples. But we were made to be holy because we were made for God. Holiness is our design because heaven is our destiny. Our life is given to us to discover how each must become holy. And today we will explore how the Rosary can help us achieve this celestial character. Holiness, perhaps, no surprise to anyone in this room, is in fact the labor of our life, and a lifelong labor at that. The most vital labor we shall ever undertake. As St. Teresa, Benedictor of the Cross, wrote before her martyrdom in Auschwitz, to belong to God and to serve him in love is the vocation of all. So great a vocation is this holiness, which is our call to love in action, that St. John of the Cross once said that in heaven we shall be judged upon how well we loved. Our holiness must be, as St. Luke suggests, a good measure, pressed down and shaken together, running over, and shared. And ultimately will be the measure by which we are rewarded. St. Father Stanislaus Popczynski, the founder of our creation, the congregation, the Marians of the Immaculate Conception, goes some distance further. He wrote, "If you don't feel the urge to help your neighbor and to place the common good ahead of any other matters, no matter how painful and contrary, please be aware that you still do not understand of what perfect love consists." By our call to holiness, St. Father Stanislaus would insist, no one is free from responsibilities for others among whom the Lord placed him and for whom he made him co-responsible. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the 20th century German theologian, once wrote similarly, that God has placed each of us in our particular time and place in order that we might bring his love to that very place and time. None of us here is omnipotent. Indeed, most of us have little power or authority at all. And a good many of us feel even less powerful than we in fact might be. Perhaps there are no great statesmen here, no world-weathered diplomats. In fact, none of us may feel any power to affect any change or alter anything in the world, even anything in or around our own lives. It is in this powerlessness where we can actually feel our fractured nature and our brokenness. But this is precisely what the Rosary is for. The Rosary is a prayer to Mary, and no prayer to Mary ever goes unnoticed, unheard, or unheeded. Consider the great Battle of Lepanto, in which the Rosary played so great a role. Pope Pius V, the mastermind behind the defense of Christian Europe against the infidels of the Turkish Empire, ordered that all churches in Rome be opened day and night, that all of Rome might beseech Mary through the Rosary for the victory of Christianity. Though against all odds and every expectation, the Christian forces succeeded in defeating their Turkish foes and saved the world for Christ and his church. So clearly did Pius V see this as the fruit of so many devout prayers to Mary and of her intercession through them, that in thanksgiving he proclaimed October the 7th as a feast day for Our Lady of Victory, later to be re-entitled Feast of the Holy Rosary. In other words, little people, yet all on bended knees, fervently praying for the safety of their world and of their church. And look what their small voices effected. Nearly 450 years of security and peace. Look again at Fatima. If we are still convinced that it takes great men to make great things happen, to work great changes in the world, 3 small children, 3 insignificant, impoverished little village waifs who no one passed by in their day as no one of interest or importance. That is, until Mary came to these 3 children, precisely for this very reason, because of the singular value of their prayers alone and the convincing character of their voices and witness. Their prayers, joined by the prayers of so many just like them, brought a war raging through the whole of their continent speedily to an end. In Chicago, in a church known as Our Lady of Sorrows, literally thousands filed through this church praying the Rosary every week during the early 1940s, praying the end would soon come to the second conflagration of war to ravage the whole world. Who knows how long this war might otherwise have gone on, save for the prayers of these unknown, unheralded voices, praying for the mercy of God's peace with all the fervor of their soldiers who sued for the victory of justice on the battlefields all around the world. Today, the world is no less in danger of such conflagration. The globe stands at the precipice of nothing less than another Babylon, a devastation the world over, where once again is repeated the Old Testament history of Jeremiah's telling. If I walk out into the field, look, those slain by the sword. If I enter the city, look, those consumed by hunger. Even the prophet and the priest forage in a land they know not. Jeremiah 14:18. No less than a prophet himself, St. Pope John Paul II has this to say to an American audience. We are now standing in the face of the greatest historical confrontation humanity has ever experienced. I do not think the wide circle of the American society or the wide circle of the Christian community realize this fully. We are now facing the final confrontation between the church and the anti-church, between the gospel and the anti-gospel, between Christ and the Antichrist. This confrontation lies within the plans of divine providence. It is, therefore, in God's plan, and it must be a trial which the church must take up and face courageously. We must prepare ourselves to suffer great trials before long, such as will demand of us a disposition to give up even life, and a total dedication to and for Christ. With your and my prayers, it is possible to mitigate the coming tribulation, but it is no longer possible to avert it, because only thus can the church be effectually renewed. How many times has the renewal of the church sprung from the shedding of blood? This time, too, it will not be otherwise. We must be strong and prepared and trust in Christ and in his Holy Mother, and be very, very assiduous in praying the Holy Rosary. If we heed the voice of this 20th century prophet, we can see just how clearly Fatima is a message for our times. John Paul's words recall for us the words of the Gospel of Matthew chapter 17, where the day will come when two men will be standing in the field. One will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding corn. One will be taken and the other left. A haunting and frightening prospect if we contemplate the ramifications of this in our own lives. Fatima is a message for the universal choir of voiceless voices, those of us who are of little account, as this world might account voices. The earnest notes of our prayers can have every bit as much effect as Lucia's and Francesco's and Jacinta's did 100 years ago today. We must be prepared, as St. Paul writes in Ephesians chapter 6. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, so that you may be able to withstand on that evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm. Pray in the Spirit at all times, in every prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert and always persevere in supplication for all the saints. This fight will be won only on our knees. Our battle cry, the chorus of our prayers, the chorus of insignificant voices stretching and reaching for the heavens with our childlike sound, earnestly beseeching a mother's and father's mercy. Who knows? Perhaps in hearing our cries and seeing the penitence of our sacrifices, as he did for Nineveh, God might repent of the evil he has planned for us. Let us begin today. Let us, as the letter to the Hebrews exhorts us, encourage each other daily while it is still today. If we return to Walmart with coupons in hand, if we go back home picking up complaints of how our sister's husband gets on our nerves, if we return to those small cheats on our tax forms, or to stretching the truth in company reports, then Fatima is just another pious story, and our words just another pretty little speech, and this pilgrimage just another fair weather outing, and our wayfaring through the graces being prepared for us all over these great green holy hills, it's just another tourist stop. Léon Bloy, the French philosopher and writer on Catholic themes, wrote that the worst evil is not to commit crime, but to have failed to do the good one might have done. Let it not be said of us that we fail to do all the good we might be able to do by our prayers. In the end, prayer is a mighty, powerful act. More victories have been won by voices raised in prayer than by all the armies of the world put together. Let us today, then, be recollected and alert, mindful of every moment's openness to prayer, and let our little voices ring out those prayers across the earth we daily trod. Our little voices, which count so much to Mary, and which count so much towards the salvation and peace of the world. Thank you.